Welcome back to another episode of Trading Secrets. Today, I am joined by the fun-loving and highly successful social media star, Shannon Ford. Many of you may initially remember her as one of the main personalities on the hit TV show Very Cavallari, where she worked as the social media manager for Kristen Cavallari's fashion company, Uncommon James. Although Shannon's time on the show lasted just beyond one season, she was able to turn what could have been 15 minutes of fame into a full-blown career success story. Today, we are here to discuss the highs and lows of her time on reality TV, her highly successful social media career, podcast, and where she sees herself going from here. Shannon, thank you so much for being here today. We are in New York City. It's a beautiful place. New York City, baby.
I know.
Well, that's what I think is so ironic. You and I lived in Nashville for so long. We probably ran into each other like 3 or 4 times, and here we are in New York. Where do you live in New York? Do you live in Nashville? What's your story with that?
I split time. So, like, I was coming to New York so often that I was... And hotels in New York are a whole nother beast that you have to navigate. So I looked at my Amex one day and was like, what the fuck? The amount I'm spending staying at the Dominic, I could fucking have rent here. So anyways, I just was like, if it works out, it works out. I didn't put too much like stock or thought into it. I just was like, I'm not going to look for months on end. I'm going to look one time. I'm going to come here. And if something lands in my lap perfectly that makes sense, then I'll do it. And then, of course, like, bloop, it just happened. Perfectly. Perfect apartment, perfect everything. So I was like, all right, I guess I'll do a year. I'll never regret doing a year, but I couldn't give up Nashville. So like, you know, coming onto a finance podcast, being like, things I wouldn't recommend, having 2 separate like rents. But, you know, I was like, you're 28, you can do it right now. You don't even have so much as a goldfish at home. I didn't have a boyfriend at the time. I had no obligations, no anything. So I was like, I want to do this. So I'm going to do it.
I think for me, one of the biggest things I want to check off the bucket list, I never have, maybe never will, is living in New York City.
And everyone said that whenever I was like toying with the idea, people were like, oh, I always said, it was so many people that now have kids and now have things that are like, I always said I like wanted to live in New York once in my life. And I'm like, okay, well then I can say I did it. And honestly, I don't regret it. I don't even know if I'll re-sign my lease coming up, but I don't regret it, and it was great.
Okay, we're a numbers podcast, guy getting the numbers. You said Dominic, you would live, I'm sorry, you would rent a Dominic's a hotel.
Yes, and in Soho. And what I would do...
What's the cost of Dominic?
Oh my God, I mean, like for the cheapest room, would be like, it'd be like after taxes and all the hotel. I mean, there's so many New York fees, like all this crazy shit.
It's gotten out of control with the fees.
It would end up being like $450 a night. And then what I would do, because New York is this beautiful, crazy beast in itself, I would be here. And this is why I was so drawn to New York. Every time I was inside of New York, something good would happen to me. I would get some sort of opportunity, but they'd be like, are you staying here till Thursday? Because you could do X, Y, Z. And there's just always something going on and happening. And I'd be like, yeah, I can stay till Thursday. So then I'd extend my stay. So every time I came to New York, I was staying for 3 days, but then I'd stay for 6.
I
mean, that's like
$2,400.
Yeah. I mean,
that's
just
without
like
the fees.
100%. And I was doing it twice a month. So like $5,000 a month in just like hotels.
Damn.
That's just crazy. And then, of course, when you're staying in a hotel, you're like, get room service. Oh, I might as well order coffee. Well, I couldn't walk across the street to the fucking Starbucks. Why wouldn't I just order a $14 fucking French press? Can I say fuck on this podcast?
You can say fuck anytime you want. The breakfast situation at these hotels, where they'll charge you the $10 service fee, the $20 pot of coffee. It's like a $200 breakfast.
I'm like, literally just ate a $20 avocado, and then I'm feeling terrible that I didn't tip the guy $5 that like brought it to me. Yeah.
All right. So you then decide you're going to live here. What do you pay for rent now in the place you got? Because the place looks unreal, by the way.
It's great. It's overpriced. I grew up in the South, so like this is so crass. My mom would be like, "Why did you ever say that?" But I'm happy to say that I pay $7,000 for my apartment in New York, which is astronomically more than what I pay for my 3-bedroom, beautiful 2-story, backyard fenced in, live in 12 South home in Nashville, Tennessee. 2-car garage. Like it's astronomically more. It's not double, but it's close.
Close to double. And do you have roommates in that?
No.
Okay. No. But if you did have roommates and you split that with the 3-bedroom.
Listen, I'm not like the perfect person to talk about finances.
No, you are though, because this is relatable.
I'm learning, and I think a lot of the things that I choose to do in my life is the hard way. Like almost literally everything in my life, I feel like I've learned the hard way, and finances is right up there. And it's just one of those things where like, yeah, but you know, they don't make it easy. I'm getting really off track here, but they don't make it easy to buy a home per se, and it's like they make it scary. They don't teach us shit in school. So like when people are like, why wouldn't you just buy? You have the money to buy. One, I'm like, I never know where I want to end up.
Okay.
Like now I date someone in London. I'm like, do I want to live in Nashville the rest of my life? Do I want to be tied down to a home? Does the only investment I want to make in my life real estate? People get so tied, like fixated on like real estate being like your way to make money and invest. And I'm like, it's not the only way you can make money from investing. Like
You're
you don't have to buy a house to invest. It's not always the stupidest thing in the world to rent.
No, you're 100%
It's just not.
right.
And people that like grow up the way I grew up with like parents that have 9 to 5s. It's always like you get a starter home and then one day you sell the starter home and you make however many $1,000s from that, and then you get a bigger home and you always are making these increments. But I'm like, it's not like the end all be all.
100%. I mean, I think there's a lot of pros and cons to renting versus buying.
Sure.
Guys, stay tuned in the recap. We'll go through those pros and cons. But I think one of the big cons is it locks you in. Like you're stuck. You don't have flexibility. You can't go to London. You can't fly there and then meet your next love of your life because you're stuck to where you need to be.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to like put myself in some like sexist category here, but like I'm just gonna speak for myself. Like I'm a 28-year-old like single as in not married female living alone. Like I don't know what the fuck to do if my radiator in a car. Fuck. No, those are in houses too. If something goes out in my house, like I don't want to be the one to fix. I don't want to have to pay. Like I watch my parents be like, "Oh my, we have to fix the roof. It's $5,000." Like I pick up the phone and call my renter. I'm like, "Yo, you got a hole in your roof. You got to fix this shit." And they come over and fix it. I'm not ready to commit to like being a homeowner yet.
Got it.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with me not wanting to hedge my fucking bushes.
Do you know what?
I just don't.
Doesn't want to hedge your bushes. I appreciate that. I love it. Question I got for you. You got a place in Nashville, got a place in New York.
Yeah.
Are you going to renew your place in New York? And you talked about already the cost benefit of it. Then we're getting into your career journey. Has it made sense? The $7K you are spending a month. It hasn't. You haven't got the return on it.
No. But I met this I met a boy, but like I met a guy that lives in London, which actually New York did make a lot more sense to me because I always take the nonstop flight from from New York to London, of course.
It's easier to go New York to London than it is to go New York to LA.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. So all that being said, it's made sense in that regard, but it's just been a very like not frugal decision, but like the things it's helped me in, like I'm like, oh my God, having my apartment during Fashion Week was so convenient. I'm like, bitch, like, yeah, I'm sure it was, but I would say it did not make sense to have a $7,000 apartment. If I re-sign my lease, which is coming up soon in the next, 3-4 months, I will look for a studio apartment. I wasn't here enough. Like I remember at the time I was like, I have to have a kitchen. Like I have to have a shower with a bath. Like I have to have this. And now I'm like, I don't even need a fucking wall. Like I come here, I do my thing. I don't entertain people at my house. I'm not having soirees at I could. It's a fabulous apartment. I really should. If anyone wants to come over for happy hour, let me know. But I don't like do enough for the space I have, and it's gorgeous and it's beautiful. But if I re-sign, I'll get a studio apartment. I'll go to the West Village instead of the area I'm in now. Like I'll do things that make more sense that I now understand having lived in New York for a year.
Yeah.
But it was cool to have the fabulous place for a while. But yeah, it's not 100% necessary, all the luxury I had with it. I just don't need it.
Got it. All right. My last question on the apartment situation, we're going to move from it, is because I get concerned in this world, right? We got the podcast, we actually have an agency, we do investing and stuff, all this bullshit. And it's going really well.
Totally.
But what I get worried about is like tomorrow it could end. Do you at all get concerned about the world that tomorrow this is over when you got like 10K plus in rent a month? Does that go on your radar?
No, I'm like so 100% sure that in this lifetime, I will always fucking make money. Like, I just know I will.
So I love that. And that's part of your confidence. And that's part of your success. Why do you, because a lot of people listening right now, and the reason they tune into this is because they don't feel that way. They don't feel that way in their career. They don't feel that in their life. They don't feel that in their next steps and dealing with their boss and what they're doing.
Yeah.
What is like the secret Shannon Ford sauce that makes you feel like that?
There are aspects of my life that I don't feel that confident in. And honestly, maybe it's like, I'm like trying to convince myself, what's that called when you're like you're like saying something that you don't even know is true yet, but you're like, it's got to be true. Not manifesting, but I don't know what the phrase I was looking for. But truly, I grew up with no money at all. And I've talked about this on my podcast before. Like I grew up in a double wide in South Carolina, like a trailer. Great family, did not know I was poor. There's several instances where I like laughed to my mom being like, oh, this girl in school said I live in a trailer. And she's like, well, that's not very nice, but you do. And I was like, no, we don't. And she was like, there are wheels underneath this. My poor mom, she's like having to explain to her daughter that like, yes, we live in a trailer. And I'm like, we live in a fucking trailer? And she's like, yes, Shannon, it's okay. But like, I didn't live in a trailer park per se. So like, I just didn't understand that we didn't have money because my parents truly did like give us the best life. And yes, did every fucking Christmas, and maybe people listening to this can relate, like every Christmas my mom would sit us down and she'd be like, this Christmas is going to be a little bit different than last Christmas. And we'd be like, here we fucking go. And we'd be like, it's okay, Mom, we don't care about presents. And she'd be like, I'm just saying there's a lot, what you guys got last year, it's just going to be a little bit, every Christmas we were happy as kids on Christmas ever were. You know what I mean? Like, but all that to be said, I just like didn't grow up with it. And then I didn't make money. And we can talk about more like when I was on the show. And like before I did that, even on the show, we didn't get paid anything to be on the show. It was the opportunity and the platform it gave us, obviously, which a lot of people know that in reality TV, and that's why they go on it. But like the second I got a taste of money, because I've always been like grinding, like was I making bucks? No, but I was always like, when I had a job, like when I worked at a law firm, right, and I had this like salary, I was always like YouTubing how to install extensions into people's hair and like figuring out how to like put like weave in girls' hair so that I could like make money on the back end. And then I'd like convince people that I was good enough at makeup. I was not, to do their makeup professionally for like these like music videos or whatever. And I would just like really con my way into like getting hired for these like random one-off jobs. And I just always have been like, I'm gonna make money. Like I will.
Do you have that like memory that's burned inside your brain where someone had mentioned that? Like you live in a trailer and your mom's like, we do. And that's like part of your grit.
Oh my God. If anyone like follows my podcast or like listens to any other podcast I've been on, I feel like I tell that story all the time. Like we live in a trailer, but like it is such a core memory because I just was like, no, we don't. There's no way we're that broke. And my mom's like, yeah, we are. Like we are. And like the first time I found out do you know what Joe Boxer was?
Joe Boxer, like I remember Joe Boxer.
It was a brand, right? I remember my mom would bring us all these cute clothes, and they were always Joe Boxer. And I was like, love, smiley faces were on them, whatever. And I went to school one day. Fucking, by the way, kids are the worst. And this kid was like, that's from Kmart. And I was like, I don't know who you're talking to, but this is not from Kmart. And they were like, I was like, my mom shops at Kmart for like things like trash bags and stuff. Yeah. And they're like, all your clothes are from Kmart. And I was like, no, they aren't. And went home and was like, is this from Kmart? And my mom was like, first of all, it is very nice. I was like, oh, you're ruining my life. But like, yeah, like there were these moments where I was like, I want to shop at Abercrombie. I want to have these things. Like I just wanted these things. And my mom and my dad, they didn't always not have money. Like my mom and dad, I look at photos of them when they were younger. I'm like, okay, you guys lived it up. Then they had 3 kids and life happens. And you know, those times were different. And my mom's a travel agent. So like, I don't know. I just like always knew I wanted to make money. And when I was younger and naive and grew up in the South, I was like, I'll marry rich. And then I got to an age where I was like, I'll be fucking rich. And hopefully also marry rich. And that'd be great. And we could just both be rich. But like, yeah, I've never wanted to have to like have those moments with my kids. And if I do one day, that's okay. And like, I don't fault my parents for it at all. Like I said, I had the best childhood ever. I didn't know we didn't have money, but
totally.
I just, those things make me want to like work hard. And like, even if I work hard and don't make as much as I make right now, like I'll always work to make money. So I just don't stress out about it. I also just don't like look at my bank account and be like, it has to get more. I'm like, that is the goal. But my goal is like, I just want to live life and be happy. And you just really can't take that shit with you when you go. And I don't like know my future kids or grandkids yet, but I'm just like not inclined to leave it all to them. You know what I mean? Like they could be fuckheads.
Don't work for you give them a couple bucks and they might get.
I'm just like not trying to like have generational wealth. I don't give a fuck about them yet.
I mean, I literally need to take all those qualities and apply them to my life because all the things you're saying you don't do are the things that I overdo.
Yeah.
I overlook at the money. I overthink about what am I leaving? Am I leaving generational?
Do it more.
Well, but there's also something to be like. We get. I say this even in the book that I wrote. We get like on average. I don't know, 60, 70 years of living. Right? Take away our years of adulting, 18, we're down to like 40, 50, right? Dogs live till 22.
No, that shit scares me more than like money, like living life. Like I want to live life. I want to be like fruitful and fulfilled in my life. And if that means eating caviar at the coast of Italy, and like I probably shouldn't with my current intake of funds, if I want to do that, I'm going to fucking do it.
You're going to do it.
Never going to do anything that makes me genuinely like, I've never ever I've never been in debt. Everything I own. Like I'm not in debt to anyone, right?
No rolling credit card debt on you.
None. Zero.
All right, we love
zero. I'm actually like also grew up when my parents like made us think credit cards were evil.
Yeah.
And so like even now when I like look at my Amex, I paid off, like people are like, you don't have to do that. Sometimes my mom is like, you should leave a credit on there so you can build credit. And I'm like, no, I have to pay it off.
No,
because
pay
like,
it off.
Yeah,
Don't leave any balance.
Like I always pay it off. And so I forget what she said. I was trying to close one time. She's like, don't close it. I'm like, ugh. But all that being said, like I just genuinely, like I said, if you think about the generations, like think about kids that grew up with super wealthy grandparents, then had super wealthy parents, shitheads, no work ethic. Okay, I'm really generalizing.
No, it's generalized,
here.
But I see what you're saying.
But like, do you know what I mean? Like,
totally.
I kind of want to just like fuck around and have take my kids to Disney World when they want to go, give them a fabulous life. But whenever I'm gone, I'm like, okay, figure that shit out yourself. Now you got to do it. Like, I'm not inclined to leave them a bucket of money.
No, I feel
really
the same.
want
Like, even
to.
like I have the money to give. If I do, I'm in that scenario. Even for college, if I have the money to give to my kids, what I would do is I would make them take out loans. I would explain what the loan is. I'd explain what the class costs, what they're doing. They got a budget at all. And if they did it right, they like worked hard, they had a side job, they did it right. On graduation day, I would hand them a check and say it's all paid for, right?
That's
to get
smart.
it taken care of. Because people will just take advantage of that. One thing I got to jump into, and I promise we're going to get into Shannon's story, but the curiosity is just driving me. I talk a lot about behavioral-based budgeting. I say, like, you can look at your credit card statement and tell a lot about your life story, like how you grew up, where you grew up, what you want to do, how you want to do. You have every outfit you have. I swear to God, I look at it, I'm like, $7K plus head to toe. You got everything working. Do you think part of the reason you have such like incredible style game and get what you want when you want is because you're like, you know what? As a kid, I didn't have it. I now work my ass off. I now make money. I don't give a shit. I'm getting what I want.
Yes, but I have officially gotten to a point where I'm like, bitch, that is so new money. You got to chill. Like, I definitely was like, everything has to have a label. And I said that. People would be like, I just need advice on what first designer bag. I'm like, don't ask me. I'm so new money. I'm like trashy as fuck. Like, I just genuinely, like, if it has a logo on it, like, I was buying it. And that, I'm like, definitely, like, in one of my best friends, she grew up with like a lot more wealth in her family. And so she'd always be like, get something like a little more subtle. And I'd be like, subtle? No. Like, I'd be like, I'm not buying that. It doesn't have the logo on it. How would anyone know? Like, that was always like, you know, like Joe Boxer's like running through my head. So I definitely have, I think, outgrown that. But I mean, like, I still like walked in with a Fendi cargo jacket where I'm like, fabulous.
I mean, it's sick.
But no, I think, yes, it was definitely stemmed from that. But I also something that I think people don't realize, and I should say, I realized I was preaching about this on my podcast, and someone was like, this is not, I wasn't preaching about it, but I was just saying, I sell a lot of my designer clothing.
Love that.
All the time. And sometimes I make money on them. Is it always that return?
Sure.
No.
Yeah.
But usually if I'm about to buy a purse or a jacket or something fabulous, I'll always like sell stuff first. That's like a thing I do in my head. But I realize that most people don't have the platform I have where they can just post it to 400,000 people and sell it immediately versus other people would have to do it to a third-party site, and then they take like 40%. I sell them on Instagram, and I just get the money straight to Venmo.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Yep,
like,
totally.
that's not everyone can do that. But
okay, I love that angle,
I'm starting to like be like, okay, you don't need all this stuff. Like, you have a lot of stuff. And also I date a guy who's like, dad was an investment banker, still is, like, just like very finance forward.
Yep.
I told him I was going on a finance podcast. He's like, interesting.
I'm like, listen to that one.
So like, he's helping me, and like my friends and family are like, you don't need it all. And then you grow up. You grow up, and I've had this life now for, I guess, 4 to 5 years, and you do all the stuff that's flashy and fun, and then you're like, okay, I don't need to do all that.
Okay,
it's not necessary.
Let's end with this. Of the elegant, crazy lifestyle of Shannon Ford, what would you say the number one worst purchase decision you made was, and how much was it? It was like impulsive, over the top, the cost of it, what was it? You look back and you're like, damn, maybe shouldn't have done that.
Okay. I wonder if my boat might have been a rash decision.
I forgot. I've been on that boat. I forgot.
It's a great boat.
You still have it?
I have it. I don't.
How much did you spend on that boat?
$65,000.
Okay, the first thing I was thinking, I thought you were going to say your G-Wagon.
No.
But G-Wagon's appreciated.
I was going to say, I've been offered so much money for that G-Wagon.
You made a ton of it.
I'm literally like just rolling around. Like, people like stop me or like, I'll buy your car. Also, I've like put the wheels on it and all those like starlights at the top. But like, you know, that. And every time I get in that car,
Yeah.
I'm happy.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like every time I like pop it in, I'm like, I'm happy. And so I don't regret that. But I also bought it used. I bought it like I didn't.
Okay.
I think it's silly to buy new cars. My mom
yeah.
even is like, one day you'll buy a new car and you'll just get it. I'm like, I just don't think I will.
I get that.
But
Totally.
yeah, the boat, I love the boat. I use the boat. I grew up on the lake. I grew up around boats. It makes me happy, but I do not utilize it the way I should.
Okay.
The boat slip that I have to pay for is
How much you have
$400
to
a
pay for
month.
that? $400 a month?
Yeah, the insurance is really expensive because I'm I was at the time 26-year-old that bought a boat.
Yeah.
And then like my boat got eaten by rats this winter. Like the seats, like you have to get the seats repaired. Like the bimini came off, and all these things that like owning a home, you're like, what the fuck do I have to fix my bimini? And
Yeah.
it's like, well, you do because it's your boat. So it's a
Interesting.
lot of things that I'm like, I don't know if I should be like a boat owner. But I mean, I like it when I use it. But that is one thing that I almost wish I'm like, you could have just like gone on your friends' boats.
I think, Shannon, what we're going to have to do is we might have to do a part 2 episode.
Okay.
Where you and I sit down.
We go through
and
it
I
all.
go through all your fixed
Okay.
but your $400
Scary.
boat slip, your $7K over here,
Scary.
And what we're going to do is we're going to offload a bunch of these assets.
Okay, I'm down.
We're going to decrease your monthly expense. We're going to sell a bunch of shit. You're going to get a huge cash inflow. And then people are going to be like, damn. That's what
crushed
I'm
it.
talking about. She crushed it. We're
Okay.
going to get to that. All right. That was, okay, every conversation we just had right now was not in the playbook. So let's go back to the playbook so we can have something from this
But we
pod.
do have to have a yard sale with all my stuff.
We'll do a yard sale.
Okay.
We'll get content for it. Maybe
Perfect.
we get a brand to sponsor it. We
Love.
got Evan here who does a lot of your agent work.
What's the
thinking,
fancy word
Evan.
for a yard sale?
I mean, there was a garage sale. There was a estate sale.
Estate sale.
We'll
I'm
do
like,
it-
an
We'll do the
estate
Shannon
sale.
Ford estate sale. It's coming.
Perfect.
If you guys want to come,
Posh.
go put in the comments. Give us 5 stars. Let us know. All right, here we go. Shannon Ford. You go on Very Cavallari after you graduate. You are known as the social media manager for Uncommon James.
Put those air quotes away. I was.
You were before the
was.
show. You were the social
Before
media
the show.
manager. Okay, so how did you land that job?
Like on a whim. So we all got casted for the show.
Sure.
Like everyone was contacted by an agency, the Block Agency or someone
Yeah.
like that. Like I think it was all the Block Agency contacted all of us. And he was friends with Kristen. And so he kind of helped with the casting. And then a bunch of us went to the formal casting with the network, sat down. But all of this was like pre-job, right?
Okay.
And then she actually interviewed people. She needed 2 jobs in the beginning. She needed a social media manager and she needed someone to ship her things. And so I was like, I want to apply for the social media job. I don't want to ship shit. And then I applied with absolutely no credentials, no, like, there was no reason anyone should have hired me to be a social media
Did
manager.
you live in Nashville at the time?
I lived in Nashville.
What
but,
were you doing for work?
Sorry. For work, what was I doing at the time? Like installing illegally hair extensions, like and like random one-off modeling jobs from I think my parents had like literally just sat me down and were like, we cannot give you, I mean, they were giving me like $47 randomly when I would ask for it, but like they were like, we can't keep giving you like,
Where does 47?
because I would call them and be like, hear me out. I have everything I need to pay my this, but I'm short 47. Like, you know what I mean? I would just
Yeah.
like not budget. And so by the time bills came, I'd be like, but it was every week. I need $47. I need $104. That's all I need, exactly that. And they'd be like, ugh. And they were like, no more. We're not going to keep giving you these odds and ends. You said when you were moving to Nashville and you dropped out of college, because I did, like you were gonna make it. And like, you got to do that then. And so I was like, all right. So I was working at a law firm. That is what I was doing beforehand.
Okay.
As a paralegal, making shit money. It was a horrible
Yeah.
job. I hated my life. And then, I met with her, basically told her why I wanted to be the social media manager. I think like I literally just told her, like, poor Kristen. I was just like, like I'm really good at social media. I've always been good at it. People always look at my Instagram and are like, I love it. She's like, okay. And I basically, she messaged me, she emailed me and was like, I think you're going to be great for the show. I loved meeting you. I don't think you make sense for the social media role. I was like, fuck, fair. Would love to ship stuff, now I've changed my tune. And then Mark Block, shouts out to him, he tells me his side of the story is that he told her, I think you made a mistake. I think you should look into her. And she was interviewing people who had actual like social media experience. And so anyways, I somehow get into this like top 4, whatever, 5 people that she was narrowing it down. And what she did was say, she's like, I'm going to give you 6 photos of this jewelry that I'm launching, and you have to caption it, show me how you would package it for social media, and send it out. I sat there for hours being like, okay, like this, thinking about going to like different jewelry websites, being like, how do they do it? How do they do it? And I was like, I don't talk like that. I don't do social media like that. Like I was always sarcastic. Like I was always doing stuff that was a little different back in the day, to give myself credit. And I just realized that if I got the job doing stuff from what I found on Kendra Scott's website, like I would never, the job would be so hard for me for the rest of the time I had it. So I wrote this email, and I'm always such an over talker, over adder. Like I'm so not professional when I email. I'm trying to get better about that, but I'm always like, LOL, hee hee, sorry, LOL. And they're always like, please by EOD, like respond accordingly. But I wrote like, hey, this might totally not be up your alley. You might think this is so weird and inappropriate, but this is the take I would do on it. And I thought to myself, if you don't like this, then I wouldn't be any good at the job anyways. And I wrote like pretty inappropriate things, like the names of the jewelry were like stud, and I like made a funny like I would just like, not inappropriate sexually, but like I just made them like bold and like crass, off cuff. And I wasn't like, take this jewelry from 9 to 5, like whatever, from day to night.
Basically,
right. And she wrote back, I want to say within like 20 minutes, and said like, Jay and I just laughed our ass off. Like, these are the best. Like, you got the job, you're hired.
Unreal.
And I was like, oh my God. Like, seriously? Like, I was pumped.
So when you take that job, though, you get hired, which is unreal. Is it more of like, you are the, air quote, social media person on the show? Or were you legitimately
the show didn't go on for another year.
Okay, so you were working full-time job, social media manager for Uncommon James.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And in a role like that around, how much can you make?
When we started, it was like, it was so great. It was such a startup. Like, we were in her living room, right? Like, I remember she would pay us hourly at first.
Yeah.
Great. Really great rate. And then, like, way above minimum wage.
Gotcha.
And then I would help out with shipping sometimes. And then when the show got picked up, love shipping. And then when the show got picked up, we moved to like this little tiny office. And then, we moved to like her office. Yeah. And then it was like, all of a sudden, I'll never forget, she started like paying us doing it with taxes, right? Like, I started getting an actual paycheck from Uncommon James LLC or whatever it was. And I like sent her a text. I was like, hey, sorry, I just like wasn't prepared for the pay cut. Like, I was just confused. And I remember specifically, she was like, I did not cut your pay, Shannon. Like, you are just now getting taxes taken out that you will get back. And I was like, right, okay, sorry, I just like wasn't used to that. Like, that's how just like, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, what I was making, I think at my height of working for her was maybe like, I think like $3,500 a month.
Okay. And then do you also get paid to be on the show? I
did get paid to be on the show. We got paid $1,500 an episode, and we had 8 episodes for the first season.
Okay.
So I got paid $1,500, taxes taken out, $1,200, 8 times.
Okay, so like a standard reality TV show rate.
Yeah.
You finish the show.
Yeah.
You no longer have the job. You've talked extensively about that.
I wasn't good. I just like was a shit employee. Like, to be fair.
Yeah.
I wasn't qualified for the job to begin with. I could have like really like grinded and worked hard and like taken courses online to better myself. I didn't do it. I started getting my own Instagram popping off, like, and she even said, like, in one of the shows, I remember I was so butthurt about it. She was like, she just wants to be famous on her own. She doesn't care about our company. And I was like, how dare she? Now I'm like, that was so true. Yeah, like, what? Like, 100%. Like, yeah. So it's things that when you're 22 and you're just so like flustered and all you care about is yourself and all you care about is your image and this, you just like, you get so bothered, but you're like, why are you so bothered? Because it's true.
Totally. Yeah.
So like,
if it's bothering you that much and it's hitting a nerve that you didn't expect, there's obviously some reality.
Right.
To
I
it.
wasn't like super happy with the way the show shaked out all the way, but like there's so many producers involved. We know how reality TV works.
Of course.
You get the shit end of the stick sometimes. I got the great end of the stick a lot of the times.
Yeah.
So like,
for sure.
my ending wasn't great, but it's okay.
Okay. So a lot of people keep up to you. Your community is amazing, by the way. Your social media community, the people love you.
Shouts out.
But there's a lot of people that are just reality TV watchers and then they go on their way.
Yeah.
And they might say right now, what is Shannon doing?
Yeah.
If someone said to you, okay, show's over, what does Shannon do now? How would you respond?
I have a podcast. I would definitely put like my podcast above my Instagram.
I was going to ask that.
Which is like a really cool feeling because, a podcast is like not easy. It's a very oversaturated business. Like it's just, there's like, I don't know. I really take such pride in that the day people started coming up to me being like, I love your podcast instead of I follow you or like I watch your stories. Like I really was like, and actually one of my best friends, one time we were out on Broadway and a bunch of girls, I mean, that's like, the breeding ground for bachelorette parties and
TV watchers. Yeah.
And everyone was coming up to me being like, oh, I love your podcast. And I was like, oh my God, thanks, whatever. And then Taylor was like, whoa. And I was like, what? And she was like, because she gets recognized all the time. I was like, what, bitch? They were out talking to you too. And she was like, no, like everyone says your podcast now. They don't say I follow you. They say like, I love your podcast. And I was like, yeah, isn't that cool? And she's like, yeah, like it was such a passion project for me. It was such a more of a like in-depth me versus me just like slinging products on Instagram. And like, yes, I'm my real self on my Instagram too. And that's for sure why people I think follow me. But I don't know, I put so much work, effort, time, money, and like it's hard work. And it's Instagram, I could go off the grid for a week and it wouldn't matter, whatever. I have to really be held accountable with my podcast. I have to be consistent. I have to do all these things that like are work. And for a while there, I was kind of just like, I have a job. But like, when you're just like posting products on Instagram, you make your own schedule. You don't really have like, you're not held to anything other than the deadline of posting the product, right?
Right.
Versus like this podcast is like work and it's got to go out. I mean, you're sitting here, it's a whole fucking production.
Video, the audio,
it's a lot.
Angle. It's a hustle.
I like employ people. I'm like, whoa, that's crazy. I'm someone's boss. Like that's nuts.
Also, when someone recognizes you for something other than the platform that you're from, which is from the show, it's such a testament to the fact you did something different.
Yeah.
And you did it. Let's talk about the podcast for a second. Probably another podcast. I went on Apple, and according to Apple at least, probably a podcast, right? Probably
another podcast would have been funny though.
Probably a podcast.
Yes.
Go search it, check it out. Welcome to the Dear Media Network. We're going to get into that in a second.
Thanks.
But the last episode, when I scrolled all the way to the first one, I saw was August 2nd, 2021. And you had your co-host MC. I thought you had started the podcast before that.
I did. So my best friend MC and I had a podcast. Preface it, we're still great friends, which is like a feat in itself. I'm like, we both deserve a gold medal and star for like being like our friendship is more important than, you know, because when you go into business with people and podcasts is a business, when you do that with someone, like, I don't know, we've seen it happen with Call Her Daddy. We've seen how things can just like explode.
Blow up.
Yeah. And we basically, she was no longer comfortable with like the things we were talking about. And it wasn't really her per se. She was always like great on the podcast. She was definitely a lot more of like the technical side too. Like when I was like, I'm going to do this on my own now, I was like, oh, fuck. And I didn't want to run back to her and be like, wait, how do I do this? How do I do that? How do that? Like that was another thing. I'm like, oh my God, I never realized how much she did. I remember calling her being like, I never thanked you enough. Like you did so much. But yeah, I think people in her life weren't comfortable with some of the content we were putting out. To be fair, the podcast back then was a lot more sexual.
Okay.
And
but did she
hilarious.
Not know the premise of the show before?
She did. Everyone did.
Oh, so it
was
my
own
surround. It wasn't her.
It wasn't her.
Surrounding her asked her to take a leave of absence.
In life, you have to think about what's the most important. The same way we were like, our friendship is more important than a podcast.
I love that.
In her life, like those things, and I fully agreed. Anyone that she loves and adores, I love and adore. And that's the truth because we've been best friends for 9 years. So like, I wasn't even remotely like, how could you do this to me? I was like, oh my gosh, my best friend is now in a situation that is so hard for her.
Okay.
Like I need to be there for her. And like, was I a shining star in that? No, I had my moments where I was like, oh my God, what the fuck? Like we had a network deal at the time, like that was like about to be signed on the dotted lines that like, you know.
When you started the podcast, did you have a network deal?
No. Mm-mm.
So you earned the network deal after what?
Yeah, after
how many episodes?
After, I wouldn't remember 10 episodes. Our first episode went number 1. I remember it was like above the Joe Rogan podcast, above Call Her Daddy. I was like, what the fuck? Like it was
so unreal.
It was insane. It was so wonderful. And like the episode was called Leaky Vagina. Like it was literally about female discharge. Okay. Like that's the content we were rocking with. So like, I kind of see where her,
hesitation was.
But like all that being said, I just really do respect my best friend, and I respect that like she had to do what she had to do. And it wasn't like, I mean, at the end of the day, it wasn't like we were the Joe Rogan show. It wasn't like we were Call Her Daddy. The show could go on. And honestly, it was branded as probably podcast from the get-go. So it wasn't like I was like, oh, I have to do this rebrand. Nothing was irreplaceable. And nothing was, and I know I'm going to sound cheesy, but like nothing was not worth like losing my friend and like not understanding my friend. And I just did. I really understood her.
You're so good at balancing the work-life perspective. Like you're not just tunnel vision to the work and the money. You're so balanced in all directions. It's unbelievable.
But that shit doesn't matter in the end. Like I said, as much as I like always want to have money and I want to eat the caviar and I want to be in Italy, like the currency I'm trying to have when I fucking go out the window is the people in my life.
And
like,
it sounds like happiness too.
Yeah.
People and happiness.
Yeah.
That's how you measure your currency. God, I love that. That could be the title of the podcast. When you guys started, how did you start? Did you start with a network or did you start on your own?
Started on our own. She had a background in radio. So that's what she was just like. I mean, when I tell you, I was like, I have a podcast. What do we do? Just like fucking talk? She's like, bitch, hold the fuck up. Like she would like seriously have to like reel me in. Like, did she know I could entertain a crew? For sure. But like, she would have it set up. There were times we'd have to scrap a whole episode because she'd be like, Shannon, you interrupted me the whole time and like we didn't get any points crossed. And I'm like, fuck. Okay, you're right. But like, yeah, we just basically started, for me, very green. She had background in radio. She worked for a massive channel, SiriusXM The Highway.
Yeah.
She was a co-host. So like I followed her lead and then she's hilarious on her own, right? So like we just kind of did it and then we got approached by networks. It's almost like the Instagram thing. It's like when you go on reality TV and everyone starts being like, I'd love to represent you. I'd love to represent you. I'd love to represent you. And you're like,
yeah.
What do I do with all these? I don't know who's good. And
what did you do?
We just started interviewing people. We just started being we didn't take anyone right off the bat. And this is a testament to her telling me we shouldn't take the first thing that comes our way. We should like let them kind of fight over us for a little bit and we should get our numbers built up super high and then let them fight for us because that's then what I never ended up signing with the network. Obviously MCs and I, we kind of put that one away. And then when I started my podcast back, I put all my own money into it. I did everything myself and then network started approaching me. And if it was anything below the deal me and MC had been offered, I was like, no, because I know.
Can you say what the deal is?
Sure, yeah. It was for $325,000.
Guaranteed.
Damn. Yeah, and I'm missing some of the details probably, but that was like we'll give that to you, and then anything you make over that is also yours.
Yeah, once you like maybe make it up in ad sales or whatever, then we'll give you what's on the top.
And so like we were, and that was after like 10 episodes. I remember we were just like,
what's happening?
What the fuck? Like, this is insane. And so anyways, when that fell through, obviously, because the podcast dissolved with the both of us, I was like, anything I get offered, like, I'm not taking it. Like, I'm not taking it if it doesn't make sense for me, like, to have, like, as in general, as a networker, as someone that could help me, elevate me, cross promote me, do all these things that I know is worth that amount of money.
Yeah.
If I don't have that, then I'm not entertaining any of this. I don't need like my startup home. Everyone's like, you need to buy a startup home. I'm like, why? I'll just rent my startup homes and then I'll buy my dream home. So like that with the podcast, I'm like, I'm not gonna get a startup network. Do you know the amount of growth I could have in a year?
Yeah.
I'm not gonna sign with a startup network for a year and then get massive and then have this like network that I just did because it was I should be signed to someone. Luckily for me, I can afford to like do the good production, do it the right way. And so I poured a lot of the money I made from Instagram into having a bomb-ass cool podcast. And then it got to a point where, you know, one of my dream networks was like, we'd like to represent you. And I was like, oh my God, perfect.
I just want to put out there, it's really, really incredible because if you look at the percentages of podcasts that can monetize at like a average level when they start on their own, it's really low.
Totally.
And then a podcast that starts on their own, no network backing. You guys are literally doing the plugs to get the audio going.
Yeah.
And after 10 episodes, getting a 300+ K offer, that is unheard. Guys, that is like, if you're listening, that is the top 1% of most podcasts. That's absolutely incredible.
It was cool.
Success story. Fast forward right now. Tell us what deal you ended up taking and where you're at.
So I'm with Dear Media now, but that is all to be said that I like, the rug was ripped out from underneath you. So when you're like, you never cared about stuff, couldn't this just all end tomorrow? It did end tomorrow for me. You know what I mean? Like, but I hadn't, obviously, like, it wasn't like I went out and bought a boat and was banking on the 325. Like, I just mean, like, all that shit can end. And I never was like, well, now I guess I can't do it. And to MC and her husband, Ricky's credit, they were like, promise us you will continue. Promise us you will do this. And I was like, I need to take a motherfucking break. And I need just a quick little moment. And then my long-term relationship ended a month after the podcast ended. So it was like a lot all at once. I was like, whoa, my boyfriend moved out of my house. My podcast ended. What the fuck? And then I'm like, but I still drive a G-Wagon. But I
got a boat.
And that made me happy every time I got in it. But yeah, I just like basically was like, I'm not going to stop and I'm going to wait until I get the Dream Network. So actually really cool in business news. Maybe you've talked about it even, the acquisition from the Toast. Massive, huge.
We'll cover that. Stay tuned to the recap. We're going to cover the acquisition Toast by Dear Media.
Okay, yeah. So then you guys can look forward to that. But basically, I was approached by the Toast, who I love, and it made so much sense for that to be like my home. Like, the cross promotion, like we have such similar fan bases, and like they're just wonderful.
Perfect.
It was a perfect fit. But they were like, like hold off on signing because we just like need to kind of iron some things out. I was like, that's cool. My season's ending soon, and I'm gonna take a little break anyways. I usually do that every interim. Like it's okay, no worries. And then fast forward, they were like, so we're being acquired, or I don't know how you would phrase that, but we're being acquired by Dear Media. And I was like, shut the fuck up. Like I mean, that's like perfect. Like that is a perfect fit for me. It's a perfect fit for the toast. Like it's just, everything was just like a little dreamsicle. And I was like, this fucking rules. My life fucking rules.
It's the full circle of knowing that you're always going to make it one way or another. I mean, that's the perfect connection. You, girl with no job, gets into Dear Media. I mean, it's absolutely perfect. Let me ask you this rapid fire question. What do you make more money on, Instagram or your podcast?
Instagram, because I have literally not even done one ad on my podcast yet. So I start monetizing my podcast next week.
Okay, gotcha. So that will
never
come.
did. Never took ads. Like everyone would be like, random companies would be like, can we give you this? And I always said like, and I would tell my listeners, I'd be like, one of these days, you motherfuckers better sit here and listen to every ad and click on all this shit, because I am giving you ad-free premium content out of my pocket, motherfuckers. And so everyone has been like so cool. Like, we can't wait to hear your first ad. Like they're just like so nice. Yeah. So
all right. What about goals? Do you have a goal like when you look at 2023, you're like, I need to make $1 million. I need to make $2 million. I need to make 7 figures. I need to make 200,000. Do you have like a goal, a target for 2023?
I never ever think I need to have a like money goal, although like I would love to make $2 million next year. But I always say like, if I'm not making this, like I have to make the same amount of money or more than I made next year. I always want to at least increase a little bit.
Gotcha.
I actually never say I want to make the same amount of money. I always say I want to increase. And if I literally increase by $5,000, then I'm like, okay, I made more. I don't ever focus on like the number like that. I think that would like really stress me out. But I always have like big career goals. Like I really want to, and I'm just not like money focused like that. Like I really don't look at it like that. And I'm not trying to sound, I know you're like, that's so admirable. I'm like, I'm really not trying. I probably should put some actual number goals, but I want to do live shows next year. I want to go like on tour with my podcast, and I want to like do something really big, like on a travel scale with the podcast. Would just be like really exciting for me.
So cool. I mean, we're gonna have to do a part 2 because you are A and I am Z on the spectrum of how we're motivated and how we manage. All right, we're gonna do one quick segment, and then I'm gonna get your trading secret. The quick segment, it's the Curious Canadian versus Shannon Ford. You guys all know the voice of the viewer. He comes on the recap. He asks me all the questions that he doesn't know. I feel like there's a lot of similarities in both their sense of humor and their personality. So I'm gonna ask you just a few questions of things the Curious Canadian didn't know. Your goal is to know one of them, okay? Quick, rapid fire.
I bet I won't.
Business-wise, what does KPI stand for?
KPI, it is kilometers per interim.
There you go. 0 for 1. Here we go. What does short and long mean in the market?
Fuck. Okay, The Big Short's a movie.
Okay.
So, obviously it means when the short is bad, everything's bad.
Wow. We're going to go to the Curious Canadian, see if we'll get credit for that. Third question. What is a loss leader?
The guy who's leading and being really good at failing. I've done it before.
Okay. We're still waiting for that one. What is a tertiary position? What does that mean, tertiary?
You're kidding.
Okay. We're going to the next one. What does antiquated mean?
Antiquated. I for sure know this one. Okay, fucking be smart for 2 seconds, Shannon. Hold on. If you've antiquated something, it means you've not acquired something, but fuck me. I really just, I don't know. Can you have asked me something a little, like go a little level below?
This is the last one. These are all things he didn't know. Remember this.
Okay.
None of these he knew. So it's not like he knew them all. He didn't know any of these.
Antiquated.
So this is okay. That was a good one because that was one he showed. The tertiary is hilarious. We're gonna hit that in the recap, guys. Stay tuned. What is an IRA?
Like a breakfast thing.
Do you know what an IRA is?
An IRA fund, like a Roth fund.
Okay, there's a Roth or a traditional IRA.
It is something that you put. No, that's a 401k where you put money in and you.
Oh my God, you're so.
So a Roth IRA would be something that you acquire over time because you're like putting small amounts of money? Doesn't your job give you a Roth IRA, or do you make your own Roth IRA?
So 401k comes from usually a corporate position, but you can have a Roth IRA. It's after taxes, or traditional IRA as your own. You need to have a traditional IRA.
Yes, and that is something that you put small amounts of money in, you can't touch until you're like 60 or something, and then one day you get it all back and it's gained interest.
Okay, I'm going to give her credit for that. We're going to go to the recap, see if David will give her credit. Before we go to the recap, that was unbelievable, by the way. We got to leave.
Turkish? What is it?
It was a tertiary position. Okay, so tertiary position, suppose you own a home, okay?
Yeah.
Then, so you own it, and then the bank has a lien on it, and then there might be a secondary lien. A tertiary position's the third lien on it. It was hilarious.
Don't they take that shit away from you at that point?
It's more on like business loans. David called it like, what the hell was that Sherry something? Like, it was hilarious. It was great. We'll get to that recap. We got to wrap with one trading secret. Shannon Ford, a life lesson, a money management lesson, a career guidance lesson. Can't get in a textbook. Can't learn in a classroom. You can only learn from Shannon Ford. What can you leave us with?
Okay, obviously I'm not going to go finance-based, but from a personal standpoint, I think like truly, and a lot of the times I say like it's really so much easier to be yourself than to like pretend to be someone else or to get wrapped up in that kind of stuff. But I'm gonna take it a step further because maybe someone listening to this podcast is someone that has a bold personality or something of the sort, and they tend to exaggerate or dare I say lie. And I think I realized I used to be such a little fucking liar, like about stupid stuff, like just like to spruce the story up to like, you look so stupid when you lie, and liars don't realize they do, like they think like, duh, everyone's believing this, but like they really don't. Everyone knows you're lying, and you end up getting like caught in your lies. And I'm not even talking about big stuff. I'm literally talking about like exaggerating stories to make them better, whatever. Like, just don't do that. It's okay to not know things. Like in life, like what I just did, like I'm not embarrassed that I didn't know any of that. It's okay. You don't have to like lie your way. Fake it till you make it is such a thing. Like we don't always have to fake it till we make it. Sometimes we can just genuinely be like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I'm so sorry. I never learned that. Can you like enlighten me?
I think that's so brilliant because it's so relatable. Like there are going to be like, most people, 95% of the people, the questions I just asked, will not know the things you knew, and you not knowing is so relatable to them, and then it makes it easy for them to learn.
Yeah.
And how else do we learn when we're trying to be like pretentious and stuck up like you don't know this and we're judging, and it creates such a headache. We've never had a trading secret where someone has said, don't lie. And I think now more than ever in 2022, more than ever, when you lie, your ass is going to get caught.
You just are.
There's so much visibility and transparency to everything we're doing.
And people that do that, like you don't realize that people can so easily see who you are. You don't even have to be a smart person to be an intuitive person.
Exactly.
And people are intuitive to your bullshit. And like, just don't be the person that everyone's like, oh yeah, she's such a good girl, such a funny girl, but God, she's so annoying when she does it's annoying. It's like not a good personality trait. And I'm glad I got over it because like, it's just not, people see you for who you are and you don't want to be that person.
I love it. Well, Shannon, I could have gone literally 2 hours for you. There's so many things we didn't get to that I wanted to get to, but we are constrained on time. Thank you so much for coming on Trading Secrets. Where can people find your podcast and everything you got going on?
Podcast is probably a podcast. My Instagram is probably Shannon Ford. That's it.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is Shannon Ford, and that's a wrap.